Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know I'm late to the party, but today let's talk about The Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Now, before I begin, I feel like the only way I can personally talk about this movie is in two separate contexts. The first is a comic book movie, and the second is a drama about living with mental disabilities. And honestly, it took me a long time to get around to watching this movie, mostly because I already knew the topics and storylines that would get covered, and I was never in the mood to watch something that deep, at least not until recently. And now that I have finally seen it, I kind of understand why this movie went down the route that it did. This story covered some heavy subjects, but I think that wrapping it all in what was supposed to be an entertaining comic book movie was a really interesting approach to attack the issues without becoming too dark. Now, that's not to say that this movie wasn't dark, because it definitely was, and I found myself noticeably uncomfortable throughout the first half of the movie. The filmmakers, and especially Todd Phillips, really had a point about mental instability, and I think they made it very clear. It's not something that gets shown very often, but it's a subject that deserves a lot more visibility and conversation. We really need to take a hard look at how we, both individually and as a society, treat others, or those not like ourselves. One single different decision by almost any character of significance in this movie could have severely changed the outcome. And as his own therapist puts it,
They don't give a shit about people like you, Arthur.
the first hour and a half of this movie was a social commentary that just so happened to be set in the city of Gotham. There were even some recognizable characters and name drops, just to ensure that you knew this was a comic book movie. It was an interesting twist to see the city from a different perspective than what we're usually used to in a Batman movie. It was the everyday people that made this particular version of Gotham feel lived in. It stood out to me because we got to see the main spectacle of Gotham City, which surprisingly can't be fully understood through its most famous resident. The city prides itself on its wealthy few, but the real power lies in its under-recognized population. It's made clear early on that the divide between the haves and the have-nots is so great that not even extreme acts of violence elicit the same reaction from both sides.
Fuck him. I think the guy that did it is a hero. 3 less pricks in Gotham City.
The city's descent into madness is not only predictable, it's unfortunately inevitable. In Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, the Joker says,
See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
on screen it may look like the Joker's actions are the push that leads the city into madness, but I think it's the opposite. I'd argue that the push happened long before our story even began. It wasn't the men on the subway or the kids in the beginning of the movie. It wasn't even what Wayne may have done to Penny before Arthur was even born. No, the real push happened with enough time for those attitudes and actions to become commonplace and ingrained in Gotham society. And like many other celestial bodies, gravity's effects sometimes take longer to take hold. Phillips's movie was just the final moment before that gravity slammed everything into madness. This movie's Joker may be viewed as giving the city its push into chaos, but to me, he's the result of that push. The city had already tipped over the edge, and he was just the physical embodiment of that result. And that brings me to the single point that sets this movie's Joker apart from every other depiction. He is not the villain in this story. Quite the opposite. He's the victim. A victim of personal injustices perpetrated by individual characters throughout the movie. A victim of the system's disregard for mental health and its associated treatment and services. But most importantly, he's a victim of the trauma induced by the aforementioned situations. Now, the last 15 to 30 minutes really felt like a Joker film, and especially the last 10, which could have been pulled straight from canon. I've always been a fan of Joaquin Phoenix and his dedication to the roles he takes on, and I expected nothing less from him in this role, and he did not disappoint. I don't want to start a debate about who played the best big screen Joker, but I think we can all agree that Joaquin Phoenix is definitely top 2. He played the descent into madness perfectly, and what could have been a very convoluted and over-the-top portrayal was performed flawlessly. From his longing to fit into society, to trying to hide his differences, to actually embracing his differences as making him who he really is. It's a nice progression that we get to watch play out seamlessly as people and his environment shape him throughout the movie. This whole movie was a very interesting theory for the Joker's origin story. Of course, that's never been revealed in the comics, but this felt like a very plausible path if the character really does have a mental illness, and that's never been off the table. But I prefer the mystery of not fully knowing what his deal is. He's such a great villain because he's never been fully understood. He just can't be. Because no matter what we think we know, we don't know who he truly is. Like his rival, he's the embodiment of a symbol. And in Gotham, symbols have a longer staying power than mortal men. Now, as far as comic book origin stories go, this one was good. It's not the best origin story you'll see, but given that a lot of ground had to be covered, including the creation of an origin story, this movie holds its own. It took a while for it to feel like a Joker movie or a comic book movie as a whole, but once it got there, I was really excited, and it felt like the Gotham City we've all come to know and love, the type of place that the Joker thrives in. The Joker may be the bad guy, and he is undoubtedly a criminal, but let's talk about Arthur Fleck for a minute. Arthur brought the wealthy's mistreatment of its underclass to the forefront of public conversation and sparked a revolution that will forever change the city. Whatever happens next, Gotham City and its residents have no choice but to reevaluate their actions and consequences. Change has to come because now everybody fully realizes what the status quo leads to. And because of that one point in Todd Phillips' particular universe, Arthur Fleck is in fact the hero. This deep dive took me a while to finalize. Even after finally getting around to watching the movie, it took a while to finish the script, because my opinions kept changing and revolving and this script keeps getting longer. Even now, I have more thoughts that I just want to add in, but I am gonna stop it here because if I don't, I could keep going on this movie. The more I think about it, the deeper the insights I get into this movie. And if I keep thinking about it, I'm sure I'll find even more that will shift my perspective in one way or the other. This movie deserved every Oscar nomination it received and should have even won a few more than it did. It was a great movie, period. Now, I definitely want to get around to rewatching Christopher Nolan's trilogy, especially The Dark Knight. But at this moment, I think this might be my favorite Batman movie. So congrats, Phillips and Phoenix. You've taken a notoriously difficult character to portray and done him justice, all while subverting my every expectation. So yes, The Joker is a great comic book movie, but in my opinion, it's an even better mainstream movie. It's a deep movie covering some heavy topics. It made me feel uncomfortable at times. And yes, I did smile at sometimes as well. But I think the real power of this movie is it made me think about our society as a whole and how we treat certain, not even individuals, but groups of people who just aren't like ourselves. A little bit of kindness could have changed Arthur Fleck's trajectory in this movie. The same could be said for our own real-world lives. Arthur Fleck's descent into madness and into becoming the Joker could have been stopped. So what about you? Did you enjoy the Joker? Do you agree with Arthur's perspective? Throw your opinions into the comment section below. I'd love to read what you guys think. This has been my deep dive into the Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Thanks for making it this far, and as always, I hope you guys have a good day, and make sure to watch a great movie. Bye.